Hello, Shendetlie, and welcome to the fourth and final of our recipes from Albania this month. Now, each week I've introduced the recipes by saying Shendetlie, which is the Albanian for hello, but linguistically comes from the word for health. So it's a bit like in French when they say salud, or in Spanish when they say salud. You welcome and say hello to somebody by wishing them good health and inquiring about their health. And today we're going to do a cake, as you can probably guess from the ingredients on my board. And that cake is called Shendetlie, which also comes from the Albanian word meaning health, which sort of implies it's a healthy cake. Well, I'm not sure if doctors and particularly dentists would agree given the amount of sugar and honey involved, but certainly the ingredients are simple and natural. So what do we need? We need some flour and some baking powder, some sugar, and I've got both a light brown sugar, which I'm going to use in the cake, and then some white sugar, which I'm going to mix with water later to make a sugar syrup, some honey, eggs, butter and walnuts. And we're going to make it quite a doughy cake, which is baked in the oven, but then after it's been baked, then we pour the sugar syrup over it to make it wonderfully moist. So it's not easy to eat, it's very sticky and messy, but very delicious. And although this is the Albanian cake, Shendetlie, variations of this exist throughout the Balkans. So we're going to head to the kitchen shortly and melt our butter, and then we'll get on and make the dough. Very simple this week: a chopping board, a knife, a wooden spoon, a mixing bowl, a saucepan and a cake tin. Okay, so I've melted my butter on the hob. I'm just going to pour a tiny bit of that into my baking dish and use that to stop it sticking. And we can put that aside for a moment. And the rest is going to go in with our brown sugar, light brown sugar, and our eggs, and give that a good stir around, mix it all up, and then we're going to add about half of our flour. Stir that again, fold the flour in. Because the butter's melted, it's pretty quick and easy. And while it's still soft enough, and before we add the rest of the flour, I'm going to add my nuts and my honey. And give that another good stir in. And now we're going to add the rest of the flour, to which I should say I've added my baking powder as well. And this is where it gets a bit harder, because it's not it's more of a doughy consistency than it is cake batter mix. So at this stage, really, you get your hands in there and treat it more like bread dough. bring all the flour together. You don't really need to knead it as such, just because there's no yeast in here. But that sort of kneading movement is quite a good way of making sure everything is mixed and absorbed. That'll do. So we take our dish, and we get our dough, and press that down into the dish so that it's fairly flat on top. And that's now going to go into an oven for about 40 minutes. And in the meantime, retrieving my saucepan, I'm going to add my white sugar and some water, and take that to the kitchen with me too and warm that up so the sugar melts and I've got some sugar syrup to pour over later on. So I'll see you in the kitchen a little later. And our ingredients are 200 grams of sugar for the cake, plus 150 grams for the sugar syrup, 2 eggs, 120 grams of butter melted on the hob, 500 grams of normal flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 100 grams of chopped walnuts, 3 tablespoonfuls of honey, and around 250 milliliters of water. Okay, so here's my cake, which has been baked off and then left to cool. And here I have my sugar syrup, which is literally just sugar and water, and I've let that simmer long enough for the sugar to melt into the water. So what we have is a sweet sugar syrup there, and we're now just going to pour that hot syrup over. Now let's protect, come right up to the edge, almost filled the pan completely, but don't worry, I'm going to leave that now, and in about half an hour or so the syrup should have melted into the sponge, should have cooled down enough that we can cut it and eat it. So there we are, Shendetlie. See you next week.
Sugar